Nintendo Switch 2 is supposed to be coming very soon, and with it, we're getting a huge performance improvement over the current Switch. If you missed my previous videos, I went over the leaked specs of the Switch 2, highly recommend checking those out, but basically the Switch 2 should be giving us around Steam Deck to PS4 level performance in handheld mode, and even higher than that when docked, so it's going to be a pretty big leap in power over the Nintendo Switch 1. With that massive upgrade in performance, we can expect Nintendo to get a ton of third-party support from AAA games that just couldn't quite run on the original Switch. So today we're going to be going over my personal wish list for games that I would love to see on Switch 2. Don't forget to comment your personal suggestions for games down in the comments below. But yeah, for my first pick, we have Elden Ring. Elden Ring is known worldwide as one of the best open world RPGs in recent years and one of the best Souls games in general. It's a beautiful game with really engaging combat, deep lore, interesting characters, incredible world building, and obviously since it's a Souls game, it's pretty damn difficult. Obviously Elden Ring never made it to Switch 1, and the most likely answer as to why that is because of the lack of power the original Switch has. The Switch is significantly less powerful than consoles like the PS4 or Xbox One, which was the bare minimum for Elden Ring to run well on the console side of things. Considering that the Switch 2 is apparently around the level of a PS4 in handheld mode and even more powerful when docked, it makes total sense that a game like Elden Ring can finally make its way to a Nintendo console. The Steam Deck is a great example of a handheld with roughly similar power to a PS4, and it can run Elden Ring well. I myself put over 130 hours into the game on my Steam Deck, playing it at 720p, 30 FPS with a mixture of medium and high settings. It was a great handheld experience, and I imagine the Switch will be able to run the game just as well, if not even better than that. Next up, we have Marvel Rivals. Now this one may be wishful thinking because Rivals isn't even on the PS4 lineup, but technically it is playable on the Steam Deck, which again, the Switch 2 should be pretty similar to, if not even better in terms of performance. Marvel Rivals is one of the most popular multiplayer games out at the moment, and it's a ton of fun. It's a 6 versus 6 hero shooter, very similar to something like Overwatch, which is on the original Switch, by the way. It's got really engaging gameplay, tons of iconic Marvel characters, different playstyles and roles to fill. It has a competitive mode as well, and it is free to play with no actual pay to win mechanics involved, so that's really cool too. It's a really awesome game, and hopefully we can see the Switch 2 get some love from the Marvel Rivals team. Third pick would have to be Cyberpunk 2077. I know, people hear Cyberpunk and Nintendo and they think that's an impossible combination, but again, we have to keep looking at the Steam Deck as a reference. The Steam Deck is able to play Cyberpunk just fine at around 720p, 30 FPS with a mixture of medium and low settings. I also played and beat the game entirely on my Steam Deck, and it was surprisingly enjoyable despite some of the lower settings. I imagine the Cyberpunk developers would be able to replicate a Steam Deck-like experience for Cyberpunk on the Switch 2, given their similar performance levels, and also given the fact that the Switch 2 is supposed to support NVIDIA DLSS, which would really help with performance. I feel like Cyberpunk would be an amazing third-party AAA game to really advertise just how powerful the Switch 2 is. Cyberpunk still remains as one of the most popular single-player games on Steam, despite being a few years old now, and that's thanks to the continuous updates that really fixed the game versus its launch version, as well as the amount of content and stuff that they have also added to the game. Not even mentioning the highly praised DLC expansion, which added additional story content. This is a really amazing game, and I think it would be perfect for Switch 2 to showcase just how powerful it is. Number 4 on this list has to go to the Fallout franchise. I've been playing Fallout since Fallout 3 on the PlayStation 3, and I've loved the franchise ever since. The original Switch was definitely more than capable of running Fallout 3 and Fallout New Vegas, but for one reason or another, we never got them on Switch. Fallout 4 would also be really cool to see on Switch 2. Fallout 4 is a PS4 era game that runs great on that console and the Steam Deck as well, so it shouldn't be crazy to see the Switch 2 handle it with similar settings to those platforms. The original Nintendo Switch didn't really have anything like Fallout other than the game The Outer Worlds. That game was a pretty decent alternative, but it had a lot of performance issues on Switch even after the various updates and patches. I guess the game was just too demanding for the original Switch hardware. I think the PS3 era Fallout games would run absolutely no problem considering their age, and Fallout 4 would also probably run a bit better than the Outer Worlds given that it is a bit of an older game too. We could definitely use more story-based first-person shooters on Switch, and I feel like Fallout is just such an obvious choice to see represented on Nintendo's next console. At number 5, I have the Yakuza series and its various spin-offs, including Like a Dragon and Judgment. This franchise is one that I think has a lot of potential to come to Switch 1 and 2, considering we just recently got Yakuza Kiwami on Switch 1. According to the studio's director, Yokoyama, he said that Yakuza Kiwami actually surpassed the studio's sales expectations on Switch and that it was selling like hotcakes, which is really promising. Maybe Sega will decide to bring the rest of the Yakuza franchise to Switch 1 and or 2, since there is definitely a demand for this franchise on a Nintendo console. The spin-off series Like a Dragon and Judgment are also ones that I would love to see on Switch 2. These games are a bit newer than some of the older Yakuza games, so they are a little bit more modern and therefore a bit more demanding, but pretty much all of them run very well on the reference consoles that we keep mentioning, the PS4 and the Steam Deck. Honestly, I just love to have all of them, all these games from this franchise on a Nintendo console. It would be really nice to be able to collect them all in one place. You can technically already do that on PS4 and on Steam Deck or PC, but we're all Nintendo gamers here, right? So it's just better for some of us to have the games on a Switch more than anything else. For my sixth pick, it would be Black Myth Wukong. Now, to be clear up front, this is most likely not going to happen. This game is very demanding. It did not get a PS4 version. It also didn't come out on Xbox Series S, which is another console that the Switch 2 gets compared to a lot in terms of performance. This game also struggled to run on the Steam Deck at launch. I'm not sure how it is now, but that was the situation when the game first released. So this game will probably not come to Switch 2, but I mean, we could at least stream, right? It's a very cinematic game. Visually, it's beautiful. The gameplay often gets compared to the Souls franchise, and the setting and story are rooted in Chinese mythology. Super cool concept, and it's a really cool looking game. I would love to see it on Switch 2, but realistically, it may be too demanding of a game to run on this console. The developers already stated that they had issues trying to get the game to work with their standards on the Xbox Series S, and that console might actually be slightly more powerful than the Switch 2 before factoring in things like Nvidia's DLSS and all that. So if they had issues porting the game there, they may have trouble porting it to Switch 2 as well. I'm not entirely sure. I hope I'm wrong, but maybe time will tell. And the final pick for this video that I wanted to mention is Balers Gate 3. Again, a very small chance this happens, but we can hope and dream. This game won Game of the Year back in 2023, and for good reason. It is a really special game. I've never actually played a game like this prior, but the characters, the storytelling, the world itself were just so damn interesting, and I just had to try it out. I have my doubts of this getting a Switch 2 port just because, like Black Myth Wukong, it didn't get a PS4 version. However, it did come to Series S, and it technically is kind of playable on Steam Deck, but it would probably have to be pretty downgraded compared to, the PlayStation 5 version, for example. The Steam Deck really struggles to run this game in the third act, often dropping to like 20 FPS or so. Maybe the Switch 2 can handle it a little bit better. It's tough to say. Either way, it would be really cool to see Balers Gate 3 drop on Switch 2. But those are just some of my personal wish list games that I would love to see make their way to the Nintendo Switch 2. Definitely a ton more suggestions that I could have included, but I think I've yapped your guys' ears off for long enough. Let me know some of your guys' personal wish list games that you hope to see on Switch 2. Always excited to read your guys' comments and interact with you. If you enjoyed the video and you want to see more Nintendo content, including videos like these, news and upcoming Nintendo game releases, live streams, and more, then make sure to subscribe. We're on that grind to our first 1,000 subscribers. But anyway, guys, appreciate you watching. Stay safe, and I'll see you in the next video.